What if I told you that most nonprofit organizations are missing out on 5-figure, 6-figure, even 7-figure gifts? And it's not because of luck, it's purely because they don't have a plan. Lack of structure, missing data, untrained staff, and how to course correct. That's our focus. Let's huddle up. Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark the Fun Coach. I am Mark Duncan, and today I want to talk about major gifts. Now, I always talk about, and this podcast is mostly focused on relationship fundraising and the fact that you need to do it and the benefits of it. But I haven't really talked to you about what it means to do this in a way that is permanently part of your day-to-day fundraising operations. So when we think about major gifts, most of the time we think about major gifts as it relates to special projects, capital campaigns, and the like. But major gifts need to be a part of your day-to-day fundraising operation. It's not just for campaigns, and we get there through relationship fundraising. But today, I want to just talk about why it's so important to have a plan and not to do this in a very haphazard fashion. Many organizations that I know or work with either aren't doing this at all, and it's primarily because they're focused on the lopsided fundraising that I talked about in the last episode, and that is spending most of your time on fundraising activities that yield the least results. And we do this because it's the most comfortable thing to do. And I get it. I get it. We just don't like the idea of asking people for money. And in fact, we're really not even thinking about it. See, we're not doing these lopsided activities like grants, galas, and golf tournaments because we're avoiding getting in front of people who have capacity. I think it's because we don't even want to think about it, or we don't think our organization or us as leaders are worthy of those kinds of gifts. And that goes to that money mindset that I talked about in the last episode. But it is important to do. But in this episode, I want to lay out for you some key things that you can do to course correct right now. And it doesn't matter where you are in your fiscal year, whether you're at the beginning, you're in the middle, or you're approaching the end, it doesn't matter. You can start this now. So let's talk about the sort of 5 things that you need to focus on to be able to make this transition from having major gifts happen haphazardly or by accident. When I say by accident, you're not leading the conversation. Perhaps a donor has come to your attention that has capacity, maybe because of an introduction that was made to you, or because they happened to reach out to you, not because they wanted to give. Right? That doesn't happen that often. We do not normally see wealthy individuals picking up the phone and calling organizations and saying, hey, I want to give you $1 million. Just doesn't work that way. So if you think that is what happens with most nonprofit organizations who are successful raising major gifts, most of those nonprofit organizations, it's certainly not because donors are knocking down their doors and begging them to take their money. It's because they do the work. And so now I want you to be clear that the things I'm going to be talking about here really don't require much in terms of financial investment. Now, there'll be a couple of things I'll talk about that you may want to consider, but at the end of the day, this is really about refocusing your work. So, what's the very first thing that you need to be able to be successful at this? You have to have a defined prospect pipeline, right? And that comes from a donor base. So, if you're a startup nonprofit organization and you want to move into this major gift space, there's some work you have to do. And the first thing you need to do is you need to start building that donor base. And if you're thinking about, well, okay, I'll just go buy a list, don't even bother. Because the list of people that you will buy that may match uh, their philanthropic support to the kind of organization that you are, they're not necessarily going to give to you. You got still have work to do with them. You still need to bring them forward. They didn't find you; you found them, right? And so your objective is to reach out and start building a base. How do you do that? Well, I often talk about the top down, bottom up approach. The first place you start is at the top. The first place you look is your board. You should be asking your board of directors to be thinking about 5 people that they know. And in this case, if we're talking about major gifts, 5 people that they know that have the capacity to make a major gift. Okay. Now, I say this often, you've got to define what a major gift is to your organization. Is it $1,000? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? Is it 500? What is that number or more, right? Is it 500 or more? Is it 1,000 or more, right? Pick your minimum and make that the baseline that you are looking to build from when you're trying to identify these major gift prospects. So look at your board and ask your board to be thinking, each of them to be thinking about 5 people that they know that they can give at a major gift level, $1,000 or more. Okay. That's a top down approach, right? And that's you're leveraging their relationships so that they can introduce you to those 5 people. That's a top down. Bottom up, you've got to build that base. Much of that can be done through social media. So make sure that if you have and your organization has social media platforms that you are using, whether they be Facebook or Instagram, right? And those are probably the 2 that I would recommend using. Certainly, you can create a page on LinkedIn that could be helpful to you, and you may want to consider using other platforms like a Substack, right? A place where you can share your mission in action. And so Instagram is a great platform for this because Instagram is very video and image focused, right? And so if you can share images and post with descriptions about what it is that you're doing, how you're serving the people that you serve, your sort of candid shots of your mission in action, great place to start. And then you obviously can write copy and so forth and talk about who you are and what you do. You can have a subtle soft ask, right? So in the profile on the Instagram page, you can have a link where people can go to make a gift. Okay. The other thing that you can do is in your email signature, you should have a link in your signature that drives people to your page to give, to make a gift, right? And a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the importance of creating a recurring gift program. And so if you've started one, that's the place where you want to have a sort of a soft ask. A soft ask is really just sort of a subtle, way to remind people that they can support your organization. So there's nothing about an ask in the email that you send, especially if you're sending an email blast, right? And that would be done from your CRM, but making sure that you are, reminding people on a regular basis that you're an organization that is doing good work and would love their support, right? And so you're building that baseline. Now, the most important thing is telling your story, right? So, way back in the day, this was the first place to start. And before we had the internet, there were things like newsletters and magazines, very expensive, but these were things that we were getting in front of people to make them aware of who we are and what we do, right? Now you can have a website, you can use your social media to drive them to your website wherever you are housing the good news about who you are and what you do. You want to drive them to that, to build that base. Okay. And so if you're a startup organization, it's probably going to take you a good year to build that base, right? And if you do the top down approach as well as that bottom up approach, you can actually start seeing some dollars come in the door if you're leveraging the relationship with your board. But you want to make sure that you are building that prospect pipeline. Okay. The next thing is, how are you going to determine who among those people in the pipeline have capacity? Now, you've already done that with the top down folks. Bottom up, you still need to be able to verify that these folks have capacity, right? So a lot of what I'm talking about here in these 5 steps that I'm going over are actually things I teach when you work with me one on one, and pretty soon you're going to be hearing about the Relationship Fundraising Academy that I will be rolling out very, very shortly. And in that academy, you can learn all of these things for not a lot of financial investment on your part, and have access to some great, great course material. And I'll stop there, and you'll hear more about that in the coming days and weeks. But you have to build that baseline of prospects in your pipeline, and you have to have some criteria to qualify those prospects so that you know that the people that you're going to be building relationships with have capacity, right? Wealth screening is a way to do this. And I talk about wealth screening all the time. It is a very, very important tool that you must have. There are really two major tools that you must have in order for you to be successful. And so many organizations, they either shy away from these or feel like, we're not ready for it yet, or it's too much. And what you have to think about the return on the investment, right? You have to think about the return on the investment. So the first would be to engage in, actually, let me back up. The first would be to have a CRM, right? That's a constituent relationship management system. On the for profit side, the C stands for customer. I say constituent because this is about relationships. And so you want a system that manages that information about your constituents, right? They're giving any demographic information that you may have, their constituency code, how do you classify the relationship that those individuals have with the organization? Where do they fall? Where do you categorize them? Are they an alum? Are they a parent? Are they a former user? Are they a community member? Whatever that may be, you want to assign a constituency code so that you can identify them, especially when you're speaking to them in mass. You may be changing your message based on the constituents that you're speaking to. So having a CRM is critical. And then the other is making sure that you have wealth screening, that you have access to wealth screening. Now, I am unabashed about 2 particular products If you've heard me talk before, been in any of my workshops, there are two particular tools that I promote because I have used them and they work well, and I truly, truly support them. One of them is Bloomerang. If you're looking for a good CRM, then I would suggest that you try Bloomerang. If you are watching this podcast episode on YouTube, I will be sure to drop a link below with my code, or my link, if you will, affiliate link, so that you can get a demo. If you decide to move forward with Bloomerang, you would get a discount. I don't get anything from that, but because I am such an avid supporter of Bloomerang, I love passing this along to people that I know, and so consider yourselves one of those people. The next would be a wealth screening service, and that would be Windfall. Highly recommend them. If you want to know who among your database has a net worth of $1 million or more, Windfall, as of right now, as I'm speaking right now, Windfall is the only wealth screening service that can provide net worth, the only one. And so it gives you a great deal of confidence to know the net worth of your prospects. So I will also drop an affiliate link for Windfall below. And if you are interested, you're listening to this on the other platforms, either go to YouTube and you can grab the link, or you can certainly email me at mark@thefundcoach.com. Say that you were listening to the podcast and you would love to have the affiliate link so that you can book a call, or book a demo with Bloomerang. And with Windfall, you would get what's called a wealth analytics report. And that doesn't cost you anything. That will tell you the potential of your database. Who among the number of people in your database that have a net worth of $1 million or more? That you're going to want to know. So, two tools that you need. So as we're looking at the list of things, got to have that prospect pipeline. You need to have a clear criteria for qualifying those prospects, and then you need to have a system to begin to move them through getting to know them to an actual gift. Okay, my relationship fundraising method actually covers, again, all of this. You need to have a plan for thanking them, right? So that's a stewardship plan. How do you recognize your donors? You have a process in place. And if you don't have here's one thing that you can do right now. Every time you get a gift, every single time that you get a gift. Now, if you get one online, then your system is probably sending a thank you immediately. So that's great. But if you're getting a major gift, or you get a significant gift, or you're getting a first time gift, I would suggest, in addition to the thank you that it automatically comes through them giving online, that you also take the time and write a handwritten note or a typed written note that you send to them through the mail. Now, you can certainly email them from your personal account, and that's good too. But you are needing to and should be connecting with them personally, because this is about you beginning to build a relationship, no matter the size of the gift. Now, you do the wealth screening and you determine that a person has significant capacity, then you're going to go a little bit deeper to develop that relationship. And this thank you should be going out no later than 48 hours after the gift comes in the door. 24 hours would be preferable, but it should be in their hands 48 hours after they receive the gift. So you get a gift in the mail. Let's say you get a gift in the mail, or you get a gift online and it's $500, right? They're going to get the automatic thank you from the online gift, but then you should take the time to handwrite a note to thank them for their gift and pop it in the mail. And if you can't do it, ask members of your board to do it. Assign that to certain members of your board, right? Really, really critical to have that stewardship plan in place. You want to make sure that your new donors understand that there is a culture of philanthropy in your organization. And thanking them is one of the first ways to convey that. And then finally, metrics. I think I talked about this recently, the importance of metrics and managing your success. So you need to know what you're measuring so that you can watch and see how successful you're being. And so some of the basic metrics that you can use are, first thing would be dollars raised. You obviously your budget, when you put your budget together, you should have a goal for how much money you want to raise that year. And by the way, when you are asked what that goal is, and sometimes you will be asked that by major gift prospects or anyone, that number should be so embedded in your brain that you not only know how much your dollar goal is, you also know how much you've raised against it to date. That those numbers should be living and breathing numbers in your head every single day, right? So you want to make sure that you're measuring dollars raised. Uh, Number of visits is another metric, especially when you're starting to get into the relationship fundraising space. Your average gift size, right? And then your average number of gifts, right? So there's gift size, that's the gift amount, number of gifts, the actual gifts that come in, and then your number of donors, right? Because number of gifts and number of donors could be different. You could have one donor that is given 3 or 4 times. So you want to make sure that you're measuring those. And then finally, donor retention. So get your baseline for all of those so that you can begin to track your progress quarterly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. You should know exactly where you are now and where you are versus prior year. Now, if you don't have prior year, then start now. Start in the fiscal year you're in right now to create that baseline, because metrics are the thing that really breeds success. Nonprofit organizations don't raise more and more money year over year over year just because things are going great. It's because they're focused. They're focused on their goals. They're focused on exceeding those numbers from prior year, and you start putting plans in place to be able to do better than you did the year before. Yes, the economy can play a role. Yes, there are other factors that come into play. But for the most part, you should be proactive about managing and watching your metrics for success so that you can tell the story primarily to your board about where you ended up and how you got there. What were some things along the way that were challenging? What were some things along the way that were anomalies, right? Because some of those years you may get large gifts, right? You're working on 4 and 5 figure gifts, right? We want to get you the 5 and 6 figure gifts and ultimately the 5, 6 and 7 figure gifts. But in a given year early on, if you get a 6-figure gift and it comes in all at once, it can skew your data. So those are the ones that you want to at least put an asterisk and say, yeah, we hit this number, but one of these gifts is a $500,000 gift, right? And that's not something that you will necessarily see every year, right? It may have come in because of an estate, right? Those are the things that can surprise you, right? You may have somebody who put your organization in their estate, didn't tell you, they pass away, and then next thing you know, you're hearing from the executor of the estate letting you know that you have significant dollars coming to you and they're unrestricted, right? So then those dollars can come in and you can use, as you see fit. Okay. So define prospect pipeline, clear qualification criteria for those major gift prospects. You want to have some sort of system for moving those donors along to get them from the point where you don't know them to they actually give. You can find that in my relationship fundraising method. You want to have a plan for stewardship, and you also want to make sure you're creating metrics that you can measure to be successful. You put these things in place today, no matter where you are in your fiscal year, just start tracking them. You can retroactively, in the middle of your fiscal year, go back and get this information so that you're teed up well for the following fiscal year. Okay? I hope this was helpful to you. This is how it's done. And you can do this. It doesn't matter how big your organization is. Some of you may be sitting there and thinking, our organization is so small, or it's just me, right? I can't do all of this. You can. You can. Now, maybe not to the level or to the degree that you would like to, but start somewhere. And your board can be helpful to you. Because once you start generating philanthropic support, you're going to be able to afford the resources you need, i.e., more staff, that will free you up to be able to do this more and then serve more people, right? Because as I always say at the end of the day, this fundraising thing, not about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time.